Getting ready to do a show. Dr. Bill will be on in a minute.
You get some audio in about 30 seconds.
Okay, buddy.
Because no matter what, no matter where, you need the truth. And specifically, if you're listening from Newport Richey to St. Petersburg or from Tampa to the coast, you can get the answer on FM 93.7, always on AM 860, online at theanswertampa.com, and depending on where you are, on FM 93.7.
Hi, I'm David Moss Jr. from Moss Nissan, and when it comes to servicing your vehicle, Moss Nissan is simply the best around. You'll experience the Moss difference from the moment you walk in. Our staff is like family, and we look forward to treating you and your vehicle like a part of that family. All of our technicians are factory trained and equipped to work on all makes and all models, from basic oil changes to full-blown restorations. And we think you should be able to service your vehicle according to your schedule. So we now offer extended service hours for your convenience. Moss Nissan, whatever it takes.
The following program is sponsored by Bay Area Medical Can Care Clinic.
Odyssey. Here is your exclusive AccuWeather forecast.
Today, comfortable with lots of sunshine, great outdoor weather, high 79. Clear tonight, low 63. Sunny and nice tomorrow, high 82. Clear tomorrow night, low 62. Sunny Tuesday, high 86. Partly cloudy Tuesday night with a low of 66. Plan with confidence. Download the redesigned AccuWeather app today. That's your AccuWeather forecast. I'm Cheryl Golden on AM 860, The Answer.
And I'm on. This is Dr. Bill, your radio MD. Welcome to the show. We got Ken back today. Yay, Ken. Welcome.
Hey.
Welcome home, buddy.
How you doing, Doc?
I'm doing good. Hey, guess what I did? I pulled the trigger. I was going to get that Ford F-150 all-electric, you know, the all-electric pickup truck, and they're not going to be available for a couple of years. I guess they're short on. They can manufacture them, but they don't have all the parts that they need. I don't know if it's computer chips or batteries or what, but so I was looking around at one of these SUVs, and Hyundai. Did I pronounce it right? Hyundai.
Hyundai. I have a Hyundai.
You have a Hyundai. Yeah, they have an all-electric SUV. It's called the Ioniq, I-O-N-I-Q. And so I called around, and I found one coming in April 6th, and I put $500 down to secure that one. So I'm going to get me a new car, first new car since 1996.
Oh, well, you're way overdue then. Yes.
I'm way overdue. Even the wife said, at first she was like, you don't need a new car. And then she said, well, you know, you haven't had one for 25 or 30 years. So she said,
it's an electric SUV.
Yeah, it's all electric SUV.
Do you have a charger station at your place?
Well, I can put one in. That's easy. But they have them at the hospital. They have 2 charging stations or 3 charging stations at the hospital that I think Duke put in just for PR. And so you can pull into the doctor's parking lot and plug your car in. It's pretty cool.
Excellent. Well, good luck. I'll be watching.
Absolutely. You know, the one wild card I didn't count on in this whole Ukrainian thing is the Ukrainians. I mean, my gosh, they're driving the Russians back. They're driving them back from Kiev, however you pronounce it.
They are incredible, aren't they? I really am impressed with Ukrainians. Yeah.
It's a head scratcher. Who would have thunk it?
Let's put them in NATO. We could use fighters like that, you know?
Yeah. Well, that'll really get the Russians. That'll get their dander up. But
well, so did Joe yesterday, apparently.
Yeah.
But he finally said something I agree with.
Yeah, he did. Go ahead and tell us what he said.
He said Putin's got to go.
Yeah, he does. And that's sort of a shot across the bow, you know. And then, meanwhile, the Chinese are saying we're imperialistic and warmongers, and we started the war in the Ukraine, and we're keeping it going because we're making big money, and our military supplies and hardware, our exports of military equipment increased 16 or 17% last year. I don't know how much of that's true. And, of course, if you're exporting a lot, and you're coming out of a recession or a pandemic where there's nobody working, of course you're going to have an increase. I don't know if people in China are smart enough to figure that out when they read their newspaper. I don't know how many people actually read their official Communist Party newspaper. I read it, by the way. I look at articles. It's fascinating. You know, their take on us and on the world quite different, but a lot of it's rhetoric, like any op-eds.
Right, you'll find it in the fiction fiction section in the library.
And I think that we spread a little bit of it too, but I think the big difference is that we have the opportunity to say what we want, at least for the moment, and you can always find a news outlet or a blog spot or something that will agree with what you're saying and doing and what you want. But I think the best thing is just to read as much as you can from all over the world and see what the world is thinking and see how people view the world. And you may not get the actual view of the average person on the street in Beijing or Xi'an by reading the communist official newspaper, because that's the party's view. And as our guide told us when we were there in Xi'an, he said, we don't all agree with that, but we have to be careful that we don't say too much or we'll go to prison, and we don't want to go to prison in China. That's not good. That's not a good place to go to prison.
I'm surprised he said that much.
Oh, we had a good talk. We talked about Mao, and we pretty much agreed on Mao. He said Mao was a great military leader because he kicked the Japanese out. Well, I mean, he did it with the Kuomintang and Chiang Kai-shek, as well as help from the United States. I mean, they didn't do it alone. You know, we supplied the communists and the Chiang Kai-shek gang with armaments, flying out of Southeast Asia and India. They called it flying over the hump, because you had to go over the Himalayas, and brought in supplies to the Chinese that way. You didn't know that, did you?
Actually, Doc, flying the hump is a term that I am familiar with. I'm an aviation enthusiast.
Well,
so
good. Then you know the whole story behind that.
Yeah, pretty much. By the way, that was a very dangerous flight.
Very dangerous, and especially when these weren't jets back then. They were propeller planes, and they were probably the second stringers too, because the first stringers were bombing Europe and North Africa and flying out of those ports, and then later on in the war, once we got the Marshall Islands, we started bombing missions out of the Pacific into Japan, I should say.
I believe we even had women flying the hump, going over those mountains, because you're right, it wasn't the the team out there.
No, it wasn't, but anybody they could get to do it,
yeah,
why not? Use them. Let's put them to work. But we helped the Chinese, and we've helped them. Remember the Boxer War? We came in on their side there, too. That was at the beginning of the last century.
Ali won that one, didn't he?
I think so. I think he did.
It was about 4 rounds, yeah.
I thought that was in Manila. No, it was in Shanghai. I don't know. You know, I knew him growing up.
I'm sorry, what's that?
I knew Muhammad Ali growing up.
You did?
Yeah, in fact, you know, his Olympic gold medal.
Yeah.
His mother worked down the street at the Van Humbert. She was their maid, housekeeper, whatever you want to call it, back in the day. And Cassius and Lucius, the two sons, they'd come out every now and then and say hi to us kids. And when Cassius won the Golden Gloves, he gave them to his mom, and she wore them around her neck. And then when he won his Olympic medal, you know, he was running around town showing all of his friends, and he came out, and so he was down at the Van Humberts, and I said, Cassius, can I show that to Mom and Dad? And he said, sure, Billy. And so he put his Olympic medal around me, and I ran home and showed my parents this Olympic medal that Cassius Clay won. I think that was 1960. And then that was the one that he ended up throwing in the Ohio River after he was sent to prison for being a conscientious objector, because he said he couldn't fight in Vietnam because he couldn't kill Muslims, and there were Muslims in Vietnam. I don't know of any Muslims in Vietnam, but I thought they were all Buddhists and Catholics, but what do I know?
Yeah, I think you're probably correct there, Doc. I don't know of a lot of Muslims there either. But when was the last time you had contact with him? When you were a kid?
Well, I saw him at Macaroni Grill in Louisville years ago, and when my parents were still alive, and my dad said, "Billy, why don't you go say hi to Muhammad, to Cassius? He'll remember you." And I felt really, I don't know why I didn't. I should have, but I saw him then, and he was eating with one of his kids. Just the nicest guy you ever want to meet. I mean, you would think he'd be a thug. He was so gentle with us kids, and so, he was just kind. And I mean, who would let you wear their Olympic medal and run around the neighborhood with it?
Wait, yeah.
Oh my
Can I take it home and show it to Mom?
Yep. But I must say that the people that promoted him, they formed a trust for him. They did a good job, from what I understand, and they part of the deal was that he had to put so much of his winnings into this trust fund, and he couldn't touch it. It would be administered for him, so that, because a lot of the fighters, they get sucked in by different groups and they blow their money, but they took care of him, and he was a well-to-do guy. I don't think he was a gazillionaire, but they made sure he was taken care of, and he even had a sense of humor later in life with his Parkinson's disease. He was still cracking jokes. He was a real jokester. He was a lot of fun. Nice guy.
I'm astonished. I had no idea that you had such a brush with greatness.
Oh man, I've touched so many great people. I don't even remember them all. I'm getting that age where it's all starting to kind of fade. Anyway,
all starting to blur together, is it? Okay.
So we've got this internecine warfare going on in our little community here, and now I'm the president of the board, and because they were picking on our past president, we just replaced him with me last month because of the egregious manner that a small group of people the way they were treating him. It was really, really, really pitiful, and he was upset, and I don't blame him, So we consulted with the majority members of the board, and we decided it'd be best to make me president. So then I had to put on a dog and pony thing and do a slideshow for the community about Robert's Rules of Orders and what harassment was under Florida state laws, and all those different kinds of things that were necessary to try and cool things down. And I talked about the economics because some of the people, small group, are yelling about, we don't have enough money in our reserve fund. And if you don't know what a reserve fund is, when you have a homeowners association, you can have two accounts. You can have an operating fund, which is the day-to-day stuff, like getting the yards mowed and touching up things and replacing minor stuff, and just day-to-day upkeep. And then you have a reserve fund, which is like a capital account. Those are things that in a corporation would be depreciable if it were for profit. Of course, we're nonprofit, so you don't really depreciate anything, but you do have to factor in the lifespan of, say, the roofs. Say it's 30 years for the roofs. So you have to have enough money at the end of 30 years to replace all the roofs. Well, of course, it's not going to be all at once. It'll be a staged event, but you still have to have that built into your reserve plan. So part of our homeowners' fees go every month go to the reserve account, and so now we've got people yelling and screaming that we're misusing the reserve account because we had to repair some roofs, and roof tiles are at least 10 years of use you get out of them, so that's a depreciable item, that's a capital item. And so then I had to put that on, and then people are saying, well, you're only putting 3% in for inflation, and the building costs are higher than that, and we're at 6.5% inflation now, which is true for this year, but this is an unusual situation. Will it last? That's the question, and we've talked about that, Ken, about the possibility of stagflation, and it looks like the feds are starting to tighten up a little bit, but the average long-term construction cost of inflation over the past 20 to 30 years has been running at about 3.5%. So we may need to increase our reserve funds a little bit. And of course, you put your checking account in a small account, a small interest-bearing account. And I say small interest-bearing, I mean right now, as you know, the interest rates are less than 1% that you're getting on your money, and money market accounts aren't much better. And I thought we would have historically about a 1% interest on our accounts that we have, and it looks like we really don't. And so one of our residents assailed me by email, and he may be right, Ken. We may need to increase things a little bit. And I was thinking, I don't know if it's any good or not. I don't really know much about the bond market, but the municipal bond funds, they look like they're paying a little bit more than money market funds. 2 to 3% maybe. Not in this cycle here, because the interest rates have been so low that the munis haven't been able to ask for anything. Like the Treasury bills, they're not paying anything either.
Just up the association fees.
Well, you can up them a little bit, but we got a lot of people that are living on fixed income here. We've got
That's true.
a lot of older people, so we have to be careful. And we got the fees down. I think we came down $20 or $30 a month this year because we cut our operating expenses by. We replaced we have 4 fountains. Actually, we put in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We had 4, and we've put in 6 new fountains, and we've gone from 3 horsepower to 0.5 horsepower, and of course they're more efficient. And then we went from the old halogen lights that were lighting the pond, the plume of the water, to LEDs, which will cut down on our electric bill considerably every month. And then we replaced all of our landscaping. We were doing annuals, so 3 times a year they'd come out and plant something new, which of course they charge you, and it's thousands of dollars every time they do that, because it's a big piece of property with 62 homes and probably 30 acres here, 20 acres, 30 acres. It's a lot of landscaping. So we put in perennials, which is going to cut our bills down another $6,000, $7,000 a year. So we've factored in, and there's a small group of people they just hate the ex-president, and now they're focusing on me.
Well, you know what, Doc? Just listening to you talk about it here, of course, not knowing any of the real specifics, it sounds like, well, of course, your reserves are low right now. You've done a lot of work, but they'll grow again.
Yeah, they'll grow again, and you know what? They're not even low. We've been putting money in for the roof repairs and the gutters and all that, and those are capital improvements. Those come out of we do a study every couple of years, a reserve fund study. A company called Felton Insurance Adjusters do that, and they come in, and how they do that is they give you the list of what they have done in the past, and they say any additions or subtractions. And so if you say, well, yeah, we had to put in a new sewer drain over by Pond 3 because there was a sinkhole there, then you put that in and the cost of it, and then they factor that in, and they say, well, to replace that in 30 years, it's going to cost you, $5,000. So you're going to have to put an extra, 5,000 divided by 30, divided by 12, divided by 62, plus 3 or 4% for inflation, and it's going to be $1 or $2 more a month. So you're talking pretty small amounts of money, but you still have to factor it in, and then they look at all that and they say, well, here's the useful life, and this piece of equipment in the clubhouse that you're using, your treadmill, it's at its end of life, and so you're going to have to replace that in a year or two. Now, you don't have to. You can say, well, it still works fine, it just needs a new belt, and then you can kick that money, you can defer that piece of equipment, you can defer that into the next cycle of 7 years, and so you kick that money and you basically keep it in the reserve fund, and you can use it for something else. So it's not really how it appears, and it's the accounting part of this is a little more complex than most people are used to or can even grasp. Most people don't even do their own taxes, but we've got this inflationary cycle here now. But we have to remember that we've had deflationary cycles too. Back in 08 and 09, things went down in price, and construction basically stopped, and you could get things done much cheaper then. And I know because that's when we built our house. So we got pretty good deals on most of what we did. And a few years later, it was up 5 or 10% in cost. So, but
Well, the further we get away from the pandemic, and if Putin goes home and things like that, and the supply chain starts to straighten itself out, I think we're going to see prices come down and inflation come down as well.
yeah, I think it's a cycle and I think also at the midterm, the Republicans are going to take the House and the Senate, and that'll put the quietas on a lot of the spending. They'll shut that down in a hurry, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely, and open up more drilling maybe if necessary.
Yeah,
But
do you
we'll
think
see.
they'll do that? Do you think they'll do that?
I think they will. Yes, especially up in Alaska, which of course Trump opened up and then Biden closed off again as far as drilling is concerned on public lands.
Let me ask you a question. If somebody wanted to drill up there on public land, and they started drilling, and Biden has said no, you can't drill, what would happen? Would they send the military up, or Royal Mounted Police, or what? How would they? I mean, what do they do to stop that?
Right up on horses.
Yeah.
I don't know. I imagine it'd have to be some sort of national law enforcement because it's a national jurisdiction.
So they'd probably send federals up there and arrest
Marshals, probably send marshals, I would think, from Anchorage or wherever.
Yeah, the marshals are they're unique. They're the cops of the country.
Yeah, they really are
they
from one end to the other. That's why they're on your planes.
Yeah, that's what the FBI. They don't really do much. They just they sit and think about things.
They get there late. They get there after the crime.
They get there late and they do a lot of research.
They'll catch the guy for you. They really will.
They will. They'll get him.
Yeah.
But if you want some action, you call the marshals.
But yeah, I mean, I never really understood because drilling is we don't have that many accidents with oil. People point to the XLDs and things like that, but we don't really have that many drilling accidents in this country anymore.
No, we don't. Yeah.
And if caribou have to walk a mile south, okay, I'm all right with that.
Yeah. We've been pretty careful, and remember that the big spill out in the Gulf, that wasn't us. That was BP.
Right.
BP Shell. That wasn't even an American company. That's a British company. I mean, they're all international. They all use the same stuff, but I guess.
Well, we just don't have the spills like the gushers we used to get in the the early 1900s and things like that. So.
Yeah, we don't get that anymore.
No, those pipes are pretty reliable.
And you know what? These things are fairly easy to clean up now. I mean, of course, in the ocean it's a different story, but on land we can get this stuff cleaned up pretty quickly. And I think there's even some bacteria that are being developed that will actually eat oil. They'll grow on oil and use it for their food. So we've got that option too. But I calculated the inflation rate over the past 30 years for everything, not just construction, and it's been running about 2.5%, 3%. So we're not. I mean, we're out of cycle here, but long term we're not doing that bad. And the ideal inflation rate, according to the Feds, is 2%. I guess you have to have some inflationary growth, otherwise the economy doesn't crank along like it should. It's a fascinating thing, but it's not easy for people to understand, And the interest rate is pretty much set by the Fed too, because they have their overnight fund rate, which is the rate that they charge banks when they lend them money. So the banks will say, we're short $100 million, and we'll have it back tomorrow, so we need to borrow some overnight. And the banks lend each other money too. And the central banks lend each other money to other countries, and that's one thing we've cut the Russians out of, is they can't borrow from the EU or from the World Banks or from us. So that's kind of hurting them, and now they're running to the Chinese and the Indians, and the Chinese are of course bad-mouthing us. The Indians are trying to stay semi-neutral in this, although they will not condemn Russia because, they've been so close to the Russians for all these decades. When Jawaharlal Nehru was the first prime minister after India became independent from Great Britain, he was a socialist, and he was a lover of all things Soviet Union. And they used to send magazines to the school kids in India from Russia, because India was dirt poor right after they broke away or got their independence from Great Britain. And then they had the big to-do where the Muslims went west and the Hindus went east, and they split into India and Pakistan. But my friends in the lunchroom, they were telling me they get these magazines, showing the Soviet lifestyle and all the beautiful girls and radios and all the things that they didn't have. It's interesting, the propaganda. And I'm sure the Soviet Union did have a higher lifestyle in the 1950s and 60s than India did. Of course, that's reversed now, and Russia's the 11th or 12th largest economy, and I think India's probably number 3 or 4 now. They're huge.
I had no idea. I thought Russia was higher than that.
No, they've fallen way down, way down. They are not that big anymore. So,
what do you think of them using? I thought it was odd that they would use their hypersonic missiles. Are they just showing off?
Yeah, they're just letting us know they've got them. And, of course, we're really scared. I laid awake all night last night thinking I was going to get one right up the old arse.
Well, Doc, this may surprise you, but I don't think they're too dangerous.
Well, you know what? You're going to have something that can carry at least a 2,000-pound warhead. And even that is not a huge warhead anymore. I mean, those are the size of the bigger bombs that we dropped during World War II. And that's back when houses were basically sticks. And in St. Petersburg, we're almost all the houses here, or at least the older ones, are block. So I'm sure they'll come down if you're within, 100 yards, but you'd have to drop a whole lot of those. And I would imagine that they're not cheap to make.
Well, that's why I'm surprised they used them, because they probably are the most expensive missile they make. So why waste them? Especially if you're this close, possibly, to a war with NATO.
I think just to let them know. I don't think
that's why I'm saying they're just showing off, aren't they?
I don't think they're really thinking straight. I don't think they have that military intellect that the West has, and I think they've proven that over the centuries, because they've taken a lot of empty tundra, and they've conquered some sparsely populated Muslim countries, the stands, and but they really haven't, at least for the past 150 years, they really haven't taken anything major. They had Poland and the Eastern European countries under their umbrella for a while, but I mean that was pretty short-lived, and they really didn't have full control of the Soviet states and of their Warsaw Pact, and I think that if we had gone to war with the Warsaw Pact, you would have seen most of the soldiers desert and come to our side, like we saw in Iraq, where the conscripts, they threw their guns down. They were begging for food and water.
You're absolutely right, Doc. I think if we would have gone into Russia after World War II immediately, everybody would have been on our side. Yeah.
Yeah, but the world was sick of war, and Russia helped us win that. So, I mean, we did owe them something, and we don't want the Russians to think that we want to conquer them. I mean, we don't.
No, we don't. We don't want to. We don't want to barely control this country.
Yeah. And the Chinese, their daily newspaper, the Communist Party newspaper, is saying things like, the imperialist United States is trying to hem the Russians in. Hem them in from what? I mean, you want to let them take back over the Eastern European countries? I don't think so. That was the whole idea of the Cold War, which, by the way, we won. No thanks to Kennedy, by the way. He prolonged it another 30 years.
Well, he almost ended it for everybody. The world I'm talking about.
And
that Cuban crisis was pretty close to the edge.
The Russians would have backed down. They couldn't have. They probably couldn't even have accurately gotten a missile over here. So the place to be if you're being shot at by the Russians is right in the line of fire. They'll probably miss. You remember all the Scud missiles they sold to Iraq?
Oh yeah.
they were about 20 or 30 miles off, and I guess that was supposed to be. And then there are two T-72 tanks that they sold the Iraqis, and I think we swept them all off the field in a couple of days.
Yeah, they were hand cranked. They had to actually turn a wheel inside to get the turret to move around.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, I know. They were fighting World War II. Hey, listen, Doc, it's almost time for a break, but before we go, how about a question?
Yeah.
We haven't done this for a couple of weeks now.
I know. Joe didn't do it. He was blabbing away last week. I love him, but God, he can go on and on.
So here's today's question. Now, and by the way, the prize is two. It's still two, right? We're still giving away two.
Two. That's a twofer, baby.
Two Dr. Bill, your Radio MD coffee mugs.
And
For the first person. They're beautiful, too. They really are. For the first person who can answer the following question, and it always deals with a subject we talked about in the first half of the show, so if you've been listening, you know the answer. And the first one with the correct answer at 877-969-8600 will win the two coffee mugs. Here is your question for today. What celebrity boxer did the doc hang with when he was a kid, so to speak? What celebrity boxer did the doctor know when he was a kid? First correct caller at 877-969-8600 wins the two Dr. Bill, your Radio MD coffee mugs. So call now.
We'll be right back. I'm Dr. Bill.
With SRN News, I'm Michael Harrington in Washington. French President Emmanuel Macron is distancing himself from President Biden's comments that Vladimir Putin, quote, cannot remain in power. He is urging efforts to de-escalate tensions. Macron, who has spoken several times to the Russian president in so far unsuccessful peacemaking efforts, is due to speak again with Putin today or tomorrow. He says, quote, we should be factual and do everything so that the situation doesn't get out of control. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken is trying to soothe the fears of Israel and its Gulf Arab allies ahead of possible renewal of global powers' international nuclear deal with Iran. Blinken making comments early today before joining his counterparts from Israel and four Arab countries for a special gathering where the Iran negotiations are expected to top the agenda. President Trump took the U.S. out of that. This is SRN News.
Dr. Bill for Bay Area Medical, located at 6399 38th Avenue North in St. Pete, 727-384-6411, 727-384-6411. Full-service clinic with X-ray, heart imaging, ultrasound, stress testing, and minor surgery. We provide quality health care in a warm and friendly atmosphere. We are multilingual, well-trained, and certified. Most American insurance and new patients accepted. Bay Area Medical, home of Can Care, 727-384-6411, 727-384-6411.
Dr. Bill here. With social distancing and sheltering in place, telemedicine is here. Bay Area Medical Home of Can Care Clinic offers telemedicine for new and established patients. You can see me without an in-office visit. Schedule an appointment at 727-384-6411, 727-384-6411. When it's time for your appointment, type this web address into your cell phone or computer web browser, doxy.me/Bay Area Med. A cell phone works well and is all you really need. For computers, you need a web camera and speakers. We'll give you this address when you call for your appointment. We accept most insurances and travel insurances. Canadians and visitors, please call your travel insurance company for an authorization number prior to the visit. Copays and deductibles apply. Self-pay rates are available. Just ask. We accept credit cards, PayPal, and Stripe. 727-384-6411, 727-384-6411.
Dr. Bill here. My friends at St. Pete MRI and Sleep Diagnostics are your best choice for state-of-the-art MRI, CT, and sleep studies. Quality unsurpassed. 25 years experience makes St. Pete MRI my go-to imaging center. Self-pay rates are competitive and out-of-pocket cost a fraction of a hospital. Conveniently accessible from both sides of the bay at 750 94th Avenue North, St. Pete, near the Gandhi. 727-577-2220, 727-577-2220.
This is an important notice to consumers facing $10,000 or more in credit card debt, medical bills, or other unsecured debt. You're not required to pay it all back because there are special programs now in effect that will significantly reduce the amount you will owe if you qualify. This is not bankruptcy or a debt consolidation loan. These programs, which the credit card companies like to keep secret, exist to aid American consumers struggling with overwhelming credit card debt by offering tremendous savings and real debt relief. Accredited Debt Relief has established a special hotline for you to call and learn what savings you qualify for. They've helped qualify consumers with over $1 billion in debt and are A+ rated with the Better Business Bureau. So don't wait. Get the relief you need during these hard economic times. For this free information, call the Accredited Debt Relief Hotline now. Call 800-786-2300. 800-786-2300. That's 800-786-2300.
As a former congressman and the ranking member on the Judiciary Committee of the U.S. House of Representatives, Doug Collins knows what it means to fight for what he believes. And on every episode of the Doug Collins podcast, he'll explore all topics, from politics to life advice, and blend them together for a well-rounded discussion that you can use to get the most out of your life. The Doug Collins Podcast. Subscribe today on Apple, Google, Spotify, and at SalemPodcastNetwork.com. AM 860, The Answer. Online at theanswertampa.com.
Odyssey.
Here is your exclusive AccuWeather forecast.
Today, comfortable with lots of sunshine, great outdoor weather, high 79. Clear tonight, low 63. Sunny and nice tomorrow, high 82. Clear tomorrow night, low 62. Sunny Tuesday, high 86. Partly cloudy Tuesday night with a low of 66. Plan with confidence. Download the redesigned AccuWeather app today. That's your AccuWeather forecast. I'm Cheryl Golden on AM 860, The Answer.
And we're back. It's Dr. Bill. Got Ken by my side, and we're doing a show here today. We were talking about the Russian situation, but I did want to touch on what's going on in India too. By the way,
What's going on in India?
well, the foreign ambassador from China to India was snubbed by the Prime Minister Modi. He wouldn't see him. He said he had a scheduling conflict, and so he handed him over to one of his, not even the main minister of diplomacy, whatever they call him in India, but so the Chinese are trying to, and the Indians, they're trying to make up over this dispute over the border and between India and China up in the mountains. I mean, more Russian style nonsense where the Chinese want more. I don't know why they want all this mountainous territory, but apparently they like mountains, and the Soviets like, the Russians like frozen tundra. I guess it's just a different taste, Maybe there's pandas up there. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, they like to ski, snowmobile.
Yeah.
The Russians anyway. The
Chinese.
The Chinese are known for their skydiving, so they like to jump off of mountains and in those fly suits. Have you seen those on the internet?
Yeah.
Where guys jump off the mountain and they fly for about, 4 or 5 minutes.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. And
They
look like birds with their wings spread out. They get their legs and their arms spread out, and they've got aerodynamic lift, and they can soar.
Yeah, they steer it through the mountains, just like a bird. Pull that parachute about 1,500 feet off the ground or whatever.
Now, you probably know where Kashmir is, but a lot of people don't. Kashmir sits on the northwest of India, and it's sort of like Puerto Rico is to us. India owns it, but it's semi-autonomous. But the Indians have been stepping in because it's right next door to. It borders Pakistan, and Islamabad is just a few miles away from the Kashmir and Umma border. Umma is another little state up there that the Indians are overseeing. So there's been terrorist activity, of course. The Muslim terrorists are coming across and trying to disrupt everything, and so India's been stepping in and shutting down the border with Pakistan and keeping the bad boys out and locking them up, and now they've got some new laws they passed. Any house or any building that is being used as a safe place for these terrorists is being seized by the Indian government. So That should get the Muslims.
What a great idea. I like that.
Yeah, that should get the Muslims upset. On the other side of their border, on the eastern side, of course, is China. So the Kashmirians are up there in the mountain, and it's a gorgeous place. I've seen pictures, and I've seen National Geographics of it. It's all mountainous and just a drop-dead beautiful place, and used to be the place to go for summer vacations before all the hoopla with Pakistan and the warfare between the two countries. But what are you going to do? At any rate, that's the report from India. Oh, by the way, did I tell you that the Indians are allowing the Russians to buy some goods from them with rubles instead of dollars? So, but it's a very small amount, It's, in the tens to $100 million range, drop in the bucket.
Well, it's going to take a lot of rubles. I read yesterday that the ruble has now sunk below a penny.
Yeah, well, what the Russians are doing is they're buying it back. They're trying to buy it back.
Okay. Well, they're using all their gold because we're not dealing in gold with them anymore either. So,
well, they can use.
They do have a lot of gold.
They can use gold.
They've got like 160 billion in gold.
They've got gold reserves, but if they do that, if they flood the gold market, then the price of gold will drop, and their treasury will drop in value too. So, but what the Russians are trying to do now is they're trying to buy back their rubles, so they can shore up their currency. If you have fewer rubles out, then the value will go up. So it's a fascinating little game that the international economies and banks and countries are playing, and I don't know what the end shot is going to be. But we've
been hearing a lot about insiders, the old Secret Service. What's the K something? It's not the
KGB.
No, it's not the KGB anymore. It's a successor. I can't remember what the letters are. It's three letters as well.
Yeah, I don't remember.
K something. Anyway, I've been reading that rumors out of Russia into Ukraine say they may be getting ready to do something with Mr. Putin. Do you think that's true? Because you don't really know what to believe anymore when something like that comes out of a war scene.
Well, what Churchill said. Said Moscow is a mystery inside of an enigma and wrapped into a conundrum. So we don't really know what goes on there. What we do know is that they like to kill each other and take power. And so I would think that Putin wouldn't. I'm guessing that he actually did poison a few people, as have been claimed by the British intelligence, and so I wouldn't put it past him if he started killing people that he thought were going to kill him. But what side do you take? I don't know. You better make sure you pick the winner, or you'll be doing some hard labor in Siberia for the rest of your life if you live.
Well, like I said earlier in the show, Joe finally said something I agree with. Putin's got to go.
Yeah. The Chinese state media now is changing their tune a little bit after Biden called them and threatened them and said, we're not going to buy any more blue jeans from you if you guys help the Russians. So now the Chinese are walking that tightrope of bad-mouthing the Americans, but at the same time trying not to help the Russians. But
well, I hope they're rethinking their Taiwan position a little bit after seeing the Ukrainians fight, because I think the Taiwanese may fight just as hard.
And much better terrain too. Taiwan is mostly mountains.
And we already have armed them.
Yeah, they're fairly well armed, and we've got troops there too, quietly.
And it sounds like the Japanese are ready to go in at any time.
Well, they'd never have like the Chinese. They're still mad about that invasion by the when the Mongolians had the Chinese throne, in the 12th or 13th century, and that's when the typhoon came up and blew all of the ships that China was launching at Japan, blew them away, and that's the divine wind, the kamikaze. That's where that word came from, was from that time period. And so they thought that was, a sign from God that they were the chosen people. Of course, we all know that Ken and I are the chosen people. But we'll let the Japanese think they're chosen.
You know who is chosen, Doc? Who is chosen is Robert Grabia. of Clearwater. Robert's our winner.
What's his last name?
I believe it's Grabia, Grabia. Robert Grabia of Clearwater. You won two Dr. Bill, your Radio MD coffee mugs because you correctly answered this morning's question, which was, what celebrity boxer did the doc have contact with on a regular basis, apparently, when he was a kid? He used to sting like a bee and float like a butterfly. His name is?
Muhammad Ali.
There you go.
Formerly Cassius Clay.
And you knew him as Cassius days, mostly.
I did. I knew him as Cassius and his brother Lucius, his younger brother. And, they were good-looking kids, too. I mean, built and in good shape because they were both boxers and athletes. But, by the way, Joe Frazier, I hung out with some of his family when I lived in Hilton Head.
Get out of here.
I kid you not. And, Ali actually helped. They badmouthed each other in public, but he actually helped them out. He helped the Frazers out. Ali was a good guy. And they were mostly shrimpers and farmers, but I guess Joe was a hell of an athlete, and he beat Ali.
Yeah.
I think he won one, and Ali won one. So.
Those were great boxing days. Everybody was tuned in for those.
Yeah, it's the sport's kind of dropped down again, but I guess it's still popular in some areas.
Well, you have to pay for it now. You've got to. It's not on. It's not on NBC anymore.
No, you can't.
So.
Well, I think a lot of it too is we're in this pacifist stage where we don't want to display violence to our kids, but I remember sitting on my father's bed on the Friday nights, the Friday night fights, the Gillette. Would sponsor, Gillette razors.
Sure.
And they would sponsor the Friday night fight, and we'd sit in his room and watch it because, of course, the girls weren't interested. They wanted to go watch something else, Cinderella. But so he had a little TV in his bedroom, and I got to jump up on the bed with him. And that was,
You remind me, my grandfather lived with us when I was growing up. My grandmother died when she was pretty young, and I used to watch the wrestling with Grandpa every week. Yeah. They had live wrestling on.
They did.
Yes, and I loved it.
Yeah, and it was and that's still a pretty big draw too. They still have that on TV, by the way. But a lot of that is theatrics, and they do a lot of rehearsal. There's a lot of training and practice, and they go over and over their moves so nobody gets hurt.
Well, when you're a 10-year-old kid, you don't know that. Yeah. I just said, wow, Grandpa.
It's very choreographed, but they're still massively built and strong guys, and they can take a lot of abuse.
And those rings are meant to give when say throw somebody on the floor.
They bounce. Yeah.
They bounce pretty good. Yeah.
But and China's bouncing too after the phone call from Biden. I guess the Chinese have agreed for a proper settlement of the Ukraine crisis, and they're calling on both sides to negotiate, both Ukraine and Russia. So that's their latest public stance after Joe called them and said, we're not buying any more blue jeans from you. But and as the Chinese saying goes, it takes two hands to clap. As Dr. Bill says, one hand washes the other. So you can't get your hands clean easily without a partnership. I guess that's the bottom line. So Xi's saying it's imperative that the parties involved demonstrate political will and find a proper settlement in view of both immediate and long-term needs, because we don't want to lose our business with the United States. So you guys cut it
out. Stop messing with our money.
Don't mess with our trade. We think the Americans are idiots, but we like their cash.
What's going on in the virus issues? Anything going on we should talk about today? How's that new variant coming along? I don't see it overspreading everywhere.
No, I had one admission this week, Canadian, older guy, demented, and I don't know how long he had been sick. He said 2 weeks, but I don't think he could remember much more than an hour ago.
Okay.
And he was somewhat sick, but he also, I think, had a secondary pneumonia. So he probably had the Omicron and then got a secondary pneumonia. he was wandering around trying to get out and go do his gardening, and nurses are calling me all day and night, and we're giving him medication to try and calm him down. I sent him home yesterday on antibiotics, short burst of prednisone, steroids, and some blood thinners, and his oxygen saturations actually were pretty low when he came in. They were below 90, and when he sent him home yesterday, they were back in the 97, 98 range. So we did him some good. We only kept him for a few days. His wife called me, and we discussed the situation, and she said, he's demented. I said, yeah, I figured that out in the first 2 minutes of talking to him, because he was looking for his clothes and his wallet, and he wanted to know where his gardening tools were.
That'll do it. Yep.
That's a giveaway.
So I hear Joe now. I was reading last night, as a matter of fact, that Joe might be recommending a fourth booster for everybody 50 and over, I think it was.
Yeah, I've taken a fourth, and I'm going to take a fifth one at the beginning of the summer. And I'm telling all of my patients, come get a fourth one. I think Mary and a couple of people at the station were asking me about that. Should I come and get a fourth shot? Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna be in your office on Wednesday. Maybe I'll get a fourth one.
Yeah.
Well, I know. How long has it been since I've been? About 3 months or so since I got my third, I guess.
Well, you better wait a few more months then.
Yeah, it's pretty close.
But yeah, I think it's a good idea to go ahead, especially if you're elderly or if you have problems. At my age, 73, the immune system, although the brain is still perfect and the body's just gorgeous, the immune system it doesn't get that message. So the immune system, as we grow older, tends to decrease its functioning somewhat, and it's important to make sure your vitamin D levels are adequate and that you're eating a reasonably good diet. And I don't mean eating what you think is good for you. I mean eating things that actually have trace vitamins and minerals and all the different things that we need. And as we get older, too, we lose the ability to absorb vitamin B12 because we have to have the intrinsic factor, which is made in our stomach. It's a protein that's made in our stomach, and it has to hook onto the B12 in order for the B12 to get through the intestines and into the bloodstream. So even if you are eating B12 by the handful, if you don't have intrinsic factor, you're not going to get it in. Then you have to have a shot. Now, some people think that the under-the-tongue sprays work. I haven't seen any data that say they do, and then other people think these patches that are starting to get popular work, but I don't know. I haven't seen the research on that either. But you just have to keep yourself healthy, stay active, keep your weight down, keep your blood sugar, your blood pressure, your diabetes, your gout, all those things that are risk factors for diseases of the arteries and the heart and the brain. Keep those under control, and you should be okay. But certainly if you have lung disease, if you're a smoker, if you've got diabetes not in control, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, all those things are high risk factors, and they will increase your chances of not only getting sick with this virus and a lot of viruses, but also dying from them, Ken. And we saw that with the research that came out of Pennsylvania several months ago, that they looked at all that, and yes, indeed, those who are at high risk are the ones that are the sickest, and they're the ones that end up going in the hospital and or dying. We haven't seen as much of that because the Omicron has not been as egregious. It hadn't really attacked the lungs the way the Alpha and the Delta did. But
well, if you got any questions, what's the phone number there at the office if anybody has any questions that they want to maybe run by you?
727-384-6411. That's 727-384-6411. And by the way, we do have both the rapid antigen test for COVID, and we have the RNA test, the amplification of the genetic material, which some countries are requiring if you're going to travel there. And so we do both, and they're both rapid. I think the antigen test takes about 20 minutes, and the PCR polymerase chain reaction takes about 30 minutes. So you can come in and get that done, and we've got that. And I think one's like 99, and the other one's 149. But I think some of the insurance companies will pay for it. Government's not paying for that anymore.
Oh, no kidding. All right.
I don't think so. But I don't know. I may be wrong, but that's what I understand from my wife. Now, she's been known to lie to me when it comes to
But she does all the paperwork over there at the office, so she probably knows.
And she's got the checkbook, and people ask me, well, how much is it going to cost to get this done here? Because I'm self-pay. I'm like, you got to talk to the little Korean up front. She's got the checkbook, baby. And, oh, my God, if I forget to circle a charge, I get it in spades.
2 minutes, Doc. 2 minutes.
This is a business. You have to run this like a business. You think you can just give things away. And no, I didn't. I just forgot, honey. I'm sorry. And I got a big.
Well, she's right, Doc. It's a business.
It is a business. I know, but you in the heat of the moment, you're moving fast, and sometimes you forget something, or sometimes you give somebody something, and you think it's a sample when it's actually something that we're selling. But oh, for goodness sakes, it's not like we're going broke.
Well, she's there. She's there to make sure you don't do that.
She is. Well, but and I'm thankful too, because I get a new car next month.
There you go.
She said, you can put $5,000 down on the credit card, and then next month we're going to pay for it in cash. I'm like, yahoo!
All right, she's looking after you. I like that.
The last thing I want is another loan to pay off. I don't want that. At any rate, we've got.
We got about 1 minute left, Doc. If you want to.
Yeah, we've got the vaccines. We've got, of course, we've got the testing for the COVID. We've got echo. We've got ultrasound. We've got X-ray. We can draw labs. We've got some in-house labs we do. I mean, we've got a full armamentarium of things we can do in the office. We practice non-invasive cardiology. Oh, by the way, I'm going to do a procedure at noon today. I'm going to stick the scope down somebody's throat and look at the back of their heart with the ultrasound, and then if it's okay, I'm going to shock them back into a normal rhythm.
25 seconds.
We're going to put them to sleep first, although people I don't like very much, we wake them up right before we shock them. And I wouldn't do that.
Doc, we got 15 seconds. Say bye-bye, buddy.
Bye-bye, buddy. Love you guys. Thanks for having me today. We'll see you next week. I'm Dr. Bill.
Thank you for listening to Dr. Bill, your radio MD. Join Dr. Bill every Sunday morning at 9 for more insight, information, provocation, and fun. Dr. Bill Handelman practices in St. Petersburg, Florida at Bay Area Medical Care Clinic, 6399 38th Avenue North. For your convenience, telemedicine appointments are available. Call his office today at 727-384-6411. That's 727-384-6411. Or visit his website at cancareclinic.com.